Cool. I feel that since we're a German company, we need to start at 11:30 Central European Summertime on the dot. So just want to say thanks to everyone for joining us on time. If people are arriving halfway through, it's not a problem at all. This is all being recorded and will be sent out after the webinar, so you can catch up on anything that you missed. Today, we're going to be talking about how to win AI search for hotels, strategies to get found, cited, and chosen by AI. And I'd like to introduce the host for today. So there is me. I'm the host from Customer Alliance. I'm Nicholas Reid, or Nick for short. I am the head of revenue operations and AI at Customer Alliance. And I'd like to introduce my co-host, Niklaus. It won't be confusing at all between Nick and Niklaus. But yeah, Niklaus, why don't you give us a brief introduction of yourself?
Yeah, thanks so much, Nick. I think we will make it easy for the audience to remember this webinar with two people with basically the same name. Hey, there was this webinar with this like Nicholas or Nick guy. So yeah, I'm Nicholas. I'm the CEO and founder of Radyant. We're an SEO and AI search agency or organic growth agency from Berlin with about 20 people, and we work with customers from like fast-growing startups to scale-ups to enterprise companies like Allianz. So we have a quite diverse client portfolio, and I have a background with my family having run a hotel, so hospitality has always been close to my heart. That's why I'm excited to be here today.
No, awesome. It's great to have you as well. Just obviously some housekeeping about who we are and what we do. So at Customer Alliance, we are a guest intelligence feedback platform. I know that's a mouthful, but essentially we empower our customers to be able to collect feedback from their guests through multiple channels and to analyze and utilize that feedback to make better decisions in order to, at the end of the day, increase revenue. We do this in a number of ways. Firstly is the online review portals. Here's just a few that we cover, but there are many more, where we systematically collect all of your online reviews into one shared inbox, where you're then able to reply to them in one place. You don't have to log in and out of 5 different portals at a time, as well as in other ways. So just some examples of how we work with our customers, large and small. So a large customer would be Dorint across their entire DACH operation, where we empower them to help collect feedback via surveys through multiple channels. The same with Preston Palace. Preston Palace is actually a nice little example of the power of feedback, in that they noticed that their occupancy rate was trending lower for a few years. And by actually analyzing the semantic feedback that they got through their open text fields, they were able to identify that the guests weren't happy with the rooms. And it empowered the revenue manager to actually kick off a whole room renovation. And since they did that room renovation, they've actually increased their occupancy rate by, I think, you guys can correct me in the case study, but about 20% since before the renovation process. So just to highlight the real power of feedback. And we're not just about reviews and feedback and kind of giving us the authority to host this webinar. We've noticed that AI search is hugely reliant on interactions between a company and the public, whether that's through content or reviews itself. And we'll go into this in more depth throughout the process of the webinar. But we actually decided to test this out, and we built a tool to assess AI search visibility specifically for hotels. Now, I'm not going to go into too much detail about it now because we have a whole section later on where I get to show it off. And all the cool things we can do with it. But basically, long story short, we are able to track hospitality visibility across ChatGPT, Gemini, Perplexity, Claude, Google AI overviews, or maybe we're going to call that Google search soon. But you're able to see how you appear in that. Is it positive, negative, how you rank on against your competitors, so on and so forth. Cool. Nick, I don't know if you want to redo your about Radyant, but it's here.
Yeah, just for everybody, if you feel like that maybe your paid acquisition is getting a little expensive, or you feel like you want to become more independent from big OTAs, you want to drive more direct bookings, for example, I think organic search or AI search, although the two fields are very much merging currently. So let's say if it's Google, if it's ChatGPT, wherever people are searching for the next destination, be it for a conference, be it for family vacation, if you want to drive more direct bookings and really turn this channel into a measurable revenue channel and not some like arbitrary visibility thing, what unfortunately used to be the case with SEO in the past for a lot of agencies, then definitely reach out. If not, also feel free to follow us around. I think we from time to time publish some interesting content that might also be helpful, even if you are not looking for a direct growth partner right now.
Awesome. And yeah, there's the website at the bottom. Pretty easy, Radyant.io. Nice, simple, easy to write down. Before we dive into the meat of the topic, just a couple of housekeeping rules. Otherwise, my marketing team shouts at me in the background if I don't cover them. We are going to be doing a live Q&A at the end of the session. So if you want to ask any questions, please just open up the chat bubble on the side and go to the toggle for Q&A. Write your question there. We also have a live chat, which is being monitored by myself and the team. So if you want to just also put in where you're from, what brought you here into the live chat, that would be great, just to kind of share who else is in the session. If you're watching on LinkedIn, we also have a team monitoring the LinkedIn comments field, and they will be sending questions our way in the background as well. So feel free to ask questions no matter what platform you're watching on. Great. Let's dive into what we're going to cover today. So I think the first thing is that we're going to make sure that everyone in this webinar has a clear understanding of how AI search works, specifically for hotels, given that that's our specialty, but also as a general overview. We're also going to share some practical strategies to help you improve how your hotel ranks with AI search visibility. And also, like I mentioned just before, we'll give you a sneak preview into our tool that's specifically designed for hospitality within the hotels and the restaurant space. Cool. Nick, do you want to give us that intro?
Of course. So I think what's very important at first to understand is that with all the hype that is unquestionably going on, that AI search is real and that it's already a pretty big thing. And I'm not saying this just from my belief or because I obviously have some commercial incentive of that notion to be true. But I think this is just something that is very much grounded in the numbers that we can see. So first of all, if you look at the numbers that are public per user, per usage, or how many usage certain platforms have, I think for Google, like you have billions or I think even trillions of searches that are still being done every year. But even if you look at the new platforms like ChatGPT, ChatGPT is one of the few players actually that have released public numbers about their weekly active users. And they have, per the last point in time where they released something, I think 900 million weekly active users. So this is obviously distributed worldwide and all sorts of different use cases, but still it's a billion weekly or almost a billion weekly active users for a fairly new platform that has just been launched at the end of 2022 is definitely substantial. Then looking at Google, I think the important thing to get right with Google is that Google has already transitioned towards becoming an AI search engine themselves. I think they even claimed it themselves when they did their last Google Marketing Live, or I don't exactly know which event it was, but they said Google is basically AI search. And I think it's true because AI overviews, the little box you see at the top of the search results in the normal Google search, so to say, AI mode, putting to the side here, this has a huge distribution. So it already appears for like almost 9 out of 10 searches. And Google has this like enormous user base still. Even if some people claim, yeah, I don't use Google anymore, etc., don't don't base your business strategy on this anecdotal evidence. So the numbers tell a clear story that Google is still used very, 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 very often. If you look at the AI search sessions, you can also see that AI, it's a little bit hard to like cluster it, but if we look at like ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, Perplexity, Grok, obviously some of the platforms are more important in some markets than in others. So Grok, for example, is mostly irrelevant in Europe, but relatively important in the US. That this channel basically now already reaches about half of the volume of sessions that search engines have. You can check out the Graphite study here where they explained the methodology, etc. Obviously, there's a lot of like hypothesis in this because the numbers are not public in the sense that you can really count the sessions. But what you can also take away is that if you ask yourself, hey, but how can it be true that Google is not shrinking and on the other hand AI is growing? It's actually because the pie is getting bigger. And it's something that you will hear more often now also with like people, Dario Amodei, the CEO or one of the co-founders of Anthropic said the same. And I think it's true because AI has basically unlocked a lot of new use cases and a lot of new ways to express interest and to express research needs. And so the key takeaway for you is just so I don't want to say that the disruption of AI search is necessarily huge for your hospitality business or for your market, but it is a big and substantial thing and probably one of the biggest changes in marketing since the rise of social. And it's definitely worth paying very close attention and really trying to understand how many people are already using ChatGPT or using these other services for in my region, for my category of hotel, for my category of hospitality business, and then drawing conclusions from that. Because the one thing that is definitely true is that this channel has come to stay and will not go away anytime soon.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that. I think Cloudflare also, I think it was last week, just announced that LLM and agent traffic on the internet has now just passed human traffic on the internet, and it's only going to grow from there. So I think it also highlights how important it is to be aware of AI search, because it's not just humans using AI search, it's also the agents themselves that are using their own capabilities to report back.
Yep.
But I mean, I think the key thing is, what does this mean for hotels given the audience? And so just some recent numbers, I don't want to bore everyone with statistics, but over half, so 56% of travelers say that they've used AI in some form to plan their trip. I know I personally have done it. I went with my wife to Prague and we asked Perplexity to plan us a 2-day itinerary to make sure we saw all the cool things. And this went up from 25% in 2024. And it's not just searching in the way that we traditionally think about it. If we look at normal, good old-fashioned Google search, best hotels in X place, we're now actually giving AI briefs. It's now, I am traveling to Barcelona with my family, 2 young kids, and I'm looking for activities that could involve my wife and I having a romantic dinner and the kids playing in a kids club. We're writing paragraphs now. And so that's also changing how we search for hotels going forward. And when we are using the search, we're finding that 78% of searchers are expecting at least a hotel recommendation to be delivered back to them based on their query. And if we factor that across the number of hotels that are listed on Google Maps or Booking.com, you see that within a given region, only 1 in 6 hotels is recommended by AI searches. And that's 10% roughly. And that's for a number of reasons, but largely it is because some hotels are better geared up to be sourced than others. And this is why we're having this discussion, to give everyone the knowledge to be able to increase this from 1 in 6 to maybe 4 out of 6, or to make you be that 1 in 6 hotels that shows up. So Nick, I don't know if you want to give us the overall AEO perspective.
Yep, let's do it. So I think you have to basically ask yourself a lot of different questions, obviously, but something that is pretty important, you can basically handle it like a checklist. So the first thing is, if AI cannot find you, then you are obviously invisible. And it has been the same, actually, so it's not really new. It has been the same also with Google in the past when it was just a search engine, so to say, because if Google wasn't able to crawl your site and index your site, then it was just invisible for Google searches. So technical accessibility is important. So if you block, for example, the OpenAI bots, there are multiple of them. So there are training bots and there are live retrieval bots. You could possibly, or you could potentially block the training bots, but you could still allow the live retrieval bots. But I mean, this is something where I would rather recommend just open up everything if you want to be visible, and then maybe get someone on the team, or I don't want to make the case to hire an agency just for that, but at least get someone that knows the technical details, and then decide, okay, if I don't want something, if I don't want the models to be trained on my data, how can I block those while still allowing the live retrieval bots? So this is the first. Then the second is, can AI understand you? So there's this very simple rule of be clear, not clever. So I mean, in hospitality, obviously we want to create, so we want to paint pictures with our words. We want to give people a certain feeling, how the vacation would be, how the stay would be. But you have to ensure that an LLM can understand what you mean. So, and if it's too clever and too much prose, then it might be hard. So prioritize content clarity for the sake of AI retrieval or LLM retrieval, and maybe try to strike a balance. So use like very emotional imagery, etc. So stuff that is a little bit less important for LLM retrieval, but definitely prioritize content clarity in written form. Then verification. So I think what's very important is, if you look at the AI response, no matter if it's on Google or ChatGPT, the response is grounded in multiple sources. So it's not just your website, but it's your website, a review maybe on TripAdvisor, or some sort of listicle like top 10 hotels for a weekend visit in Berlin. It might be other platforms. It might be publication in a local magazine, and you have to ensure that the things you state on your own site can also be verified on others. Because the better the citation corpus basically is, and the more coherent, so the easily put, the more websites say that your spa area is the best in Berlin, the better. Then can it trust you? So EAT signal. So EAT is a concept that is has been introduced by Google. Lily Ray, for example, a New York-based SEO influencer, also very, very much believes in it. I think a key part here is, do you have like a human author that is visible on your site for an article? Do you really give proof points to certain things you claim? So if you claim that your hotel's the best rated hotel, do you actually have a reference to the TripAdvisor award you got, or some sort of recommendation you got, stuff like that? And then, are you still relevant? So I think it's very important recency to ensure that your content is up to date. So if you have, for example, recommendations for like the best bars in Berlin on your site, and you know that people like, maybe let's say the best museums or something, and you know that a lot of people come to Berlin to visit certain museums. If this piece of content is very much outdated, because, for example, some of the museums you list there are currently under renovation, this can hurt your visibility. So you should ensure that your content is always up to date and always very fresh.
Amazing. Sorry. Right. So I think we can get into some 5 rules of AEO or GEO. So what's the first rule? The first rule is own your data everywhere. So consistency across every platform is your foundation in AI search. Nick, what does that mean overall? And then we can go into hospitality specifically.
Yeah, yeah, I think I already touched a little bit on that because I'm a guy of a comprehensive answer, but it's basically very important that you ensure that the things you want to be known about yourself are consistently told also by others. So if I for example, if I tell someone Customer Alliance is a great platform, then if people trust me, it's already good. But if I, for example, work for Customer Alliance, they might say, yeah, okay, you're somehow biased. But if then 5 to 10 other people also say Customer Alliance is a great platform, they help me a lot with reviews, they help me with AI search visibility, etc., then suddenly it becomes common knowledge. And I think this is the basic idea behind it. You want to ensure that you have a coherent view about yourself, the things you want to be known about yourself, they should be repeated on platforms. So if you want your hotel to be, and this is, I think it's a challenge because you have to really get clear on your positioning. So you have to also understand, what do I want to be known for? So do I want to be the best city hotel for a short trip? Or do I want to be the best hotel for people that are looking for a cultural visit? Or do I want to be the best hotel for relaxing a 2-week long stay with a particular spa experience? The more clear you get on what you actually want to be known for, the easier it is to check, hey, who is saying something about me on other websites, on review platforms, on directories, wherever, on booking platforms, that is not in line with my positioning and the way I want to be known, and then can I correct it? So do I have to reach out to an editor that wrote about me maybe 2 years ago, and do I have to ask them to update the article because we have basically transitioned in our positioning? I think this is the key here, how you have to think about this generally.
Exactly. I mean, we're throwing a lot of acronyms around. So maybe just briefly we can explain when we say AEO and GEO, what we're referring to, and SEO as well. Just very briefly, there's someone commented in the chat that we're speaking Latin with these acronyms.
Yeah, so AEO is answer engine optimization and GEO is generative engine optimization. There is not a common acronym yet, so people basically use both. In Germany and the EU, GEO is more common, and in the US, AEO is a little bit more common. Despite GEO being introduced by a US VC firm, it is somehow more common here. I personally like to say AI search because I don't like these acronyms, because I totally get your question and I always hated. So my mom, for example, she used to do dog breeding, and she always had all these acronyms with all certain things, and I never understood it as a kid. And I once told her, can't you just speak in a way that everybody gets it? And I think this is why I don't like this language of exclusion. So the idea is just as SEO was search engine optimization, we think about the new type of search engines and the ChatGPTs, etc., like answer engines or generative engines. So they generate the answer. You do not get like a list of links, but you get a real response, an answer. This is just where these acronyms come from. But I personally, I would like to use the word AI search, because then it's pretty clear. People search, people use AI to search. Nobody has questions.
Awesome. Thanks for that brief definition. So what does this rule number 1 of owning your data mean for hotels? Your data lives in more places than you think. The most obvious one is your own website. You have complete control of that, the images that are used, the copy that's on your website. But a lot of travelers aren't directly going to your website. They're using either Google first, in which case your Google business profile is your key asset there. And that's where your reviews are also listed from Google, where you can also put images as well as service descriptions. I mean, we know the big ones: Booking.com, Expedia, Hotels.com, TripAdvisor. Those are all content about your hotels as well as some other websites like local directories. the issue here is that it becomes very difficult to maintain your content across so many different channels unless you are incredibly aware of it and you've mapped it out appropriately. And if you don't keep it up to date across all the channels, we all know that AI has this phenomenon of hallucinating. And if there is one piece of wrong information on, let's say, your booking.com profile, it can quite easily infer that that is the gospel truth for every other channel that you have, and will ignore the actual reality of the situation. And so this is how owning your data translates in a hospitality context. It's really important that you've mapped out these channels where you are listed, where your facilities are mentioned, as well as where guests themselves are leaving their feedback, so that you are able to control what is there and what is being searched and scraped. Rule number 2 is build content that answers real questions, because actually the best source of content is your front desk, right? Every traveler knows this, every hotel owner knows this. The front desk is the first place to go when you have a question. So what does this mean in reality?
Yeah, I think the problem is with SEO in the past, a lot of people, and I don't want to blame them for it because it was just the best practice, started their topical research with an SEO tool or like with keyword research, because it was pretty easy. You could just go to the tool, you would enter in the most easiest form, you would just enter your competitor's domain, then you would check the keywords they rank for, and then you would write content to cover those keywords. But I think the problem is that a keyword is not really an expression of interest. It's just something you can find in a tool, and behind the keyword can be very different intents. So the best way actually to find ideas for content that is also converting, so not necessarily content that drives the most traffic, because it's not about traffic, it's about getting people to the site that actually want to book, is speaking to customers. And if you cannot speak to customers directly, speak to people that speak to customers as much as possible. So what we do, for example, if you really think about this marketing process, what we do is we schedule interviews, expert interviews with our clients or with people that are customer facing at our clients. So we might speak to someone that is like, it's not a hospitality example here, but we might speak to someone that is like head of sales or head of customer success. If you translate it to a hotel, it might be your front desk, as you said, or it might be the people that are actually in the, if it's a bigger hotel, it might also be the people that are working in customer support that like really know the questions that your guests have. And I think the key point here is to not only speak to those people, but also ask the right questions. So you want to really understand, what do your customers or your guests care about? So what made them consider staying at your hotel? What was most important to them? What did they like the most? What did they not like? Because this will give you a multitude of ideas for content to create. So a cool thing that we always notice is that mostly there's always a certain trigger for research. So it might be a friend recommended something, and what I really found interesting is the location at this lake. Or what I found most interesting is that this is a hotel that is very close to Munich, but not in Munich. So it has a good connection via train, but still it's a little bit quieter than in the city. All these little nuances. Mostly, it's not something that is just common for one guest, but it's a theme. So certain people share these like triggers or share these like selection criteria. And the better you understand those, the better you can create targeted content that actually answers the questions of these people. And you then in turn increase the chances that your content becomes the citation, so is used by an AI engine to form its answer, and then also increase the chances that your hotel or your hospitality business of whatever shape or form is also recommended in the response. So this is why I would say you should, if you want to show up in AI, you should talk to your customers as much as possible, because the better you understand them from these conversations, the better you can anticipate the things they will type into the prompt windows or the search windows on Google, ChatGPT, and Co.
Awesome. What does this look like for hotels? As we mentioned at the start, and whether you want to use the term AEO, it's in the name, it's an answer engine. Travelers are not searching for best hotel in Südtirol. They are asking a question: what is the best hotel in Südtirol that has a spa with a sauna and a hot tub? And the engine itself is actually trying to answer that. So you should be thinking of your content in that kind of FAQ fashion. So it could be something like, here's an example from the team where, hotel close to Munich airport. That would be a really bad answer for the engine to surface. And rather a better answer would be, we're actually 2 minutes from the train station. We have 24-hour check-in, essentially giving every possible answer to the follow-up questions as well of a guest. And like you said, Nick, it becomes really important to talk to the front desk as well in this. What questions are you being asked? When guests phone you on the phone, what are the standard questions, so that you can actually build that content into your website's FAQs, or even Airbnb now has that section for FAQs as well on their new hotels portal. So there are a lot of places that you can put this content out there so that it is scraped and surfaced in these searches. So rule number 3 is write for decision moments. So here we're talking about high intent topics on where customers are making the decision between you and a competitor. So you got to kind of own that point in that decision process. How is that done?
Yeah. So I think it's a little bit connected to the previous point. If you understand your customers really well, you can also differentiate between the topics where you can actually address them with the highest intent. So if we think about intent is such a, it's a non-word, so it doesn't really have a clear meaning. You can basically use it in all different contexts. But I think what's important here is you want to understand really where is the critical point that someone decides which hotel, for example, to use. And for me personally, because you brought up Südtirol as an example, it's a very good example, because I have a 3.5-year-old daughter, and I was also researching hotels and researching potential locations to stay. And something that was very important for me is having a good and a very diverse program for activities. I wanted her to really have every day have an option to explore something, do a little horse riding, or we can go outside and use the slide, or we have a pool and the pool also has a water slide and all of that. And then I basically went into Claude, because I personally prefer Claude, and I had this conversation where I was just researching for family hotels, etc. And then I nailed it down even further. And then at one point I said, what are the hotels with the most interesting activities that are good for indoors when it's a rainy day, but also then outdoors? And then I got a really nice hotel. So I'm not gonna name the hotel here because I want to keep it for myself. But a very great hotel in Südtirol, where we also booked, and we also booked the second time already, and we also booked on the site. So direct booking, no commission, no 15% going to Booking.com or whatever platform. And the cool thing is they just had the best responses here, because and I think they didn't really do it from an AI search perspective, because they are probably super smart in marketing, but I think the topic's too new for them to dedicatedly create these pages for this. But they had a multitude of pages where they outlined in great detail the different activities for kids, the ages for kids that they recommend, etc., etc. And it was very compelling, and it was a perfect match to my high intent answer I had, and this is why they basically got the deal. And you can go through all the different decisive factors, so to say. Comparison queries is something that is definitely important. So where people say, should I go? Should I take this or should I take that? Or what's the best hotel to do that or to do this? And then always thinking about how do I get across what is really unique to my offering, and then creating content for that, and acknowledging a little bit of the factors we outlined before, like technical accessibility, writing for clarity. So they made it very clear. And not a lot of like cleverness, etc. in the copy. And it worked quite well. And I think it's not just an anecdotal example. It's something where you can really see how it's possible, because I did not have this hotel on my radar before, but they just won based on these new rules in an AI discovery economy, so to say.
Exactly. Personally, I think I would like that hotel's name. So maybe offline we can chat about it. You can share your learnings. But I think the key thing is, and you mentioned it, is as a hotel you got to pick your categories, and you really have to own them. So you really have to ask yourselves, what do we excel at as a business? Is it our spa? Is it our access to nature, lake access, lake activities, kids centers? Really ask yourselves, what is the thing that makes us unique, or what are we better at than other people? So even if it's a city hotel where your primary guests are business travelers, there's not much that's going to really make you stand out from the crowd in terms of actual amenities or features, but you can really pick something where it could be late check-in or late check-out, and really own those service offerings and write that content around it so that is what is surfaced. Again, we're going back to FAQs, dedicated landing pages that can be scraped, as well as, and shameless plug for Customer Alliance, but encouraging reviews that kind of reflect those amenities, where you can have surveys at specific points in the guest journey that is exactly what will prompt them to give the response you want on the various platforms that can be accessed. And I think also you need to look into your local guides, your local publications, bloggers, everyone that's doing the top 10 best restaurants in Vienna, that type of thing, and really reach out to them to engage with them so that you can establish how can we get in your content. I'm not advocating for paid placements, but it could just be an organic thing around like, what is your criteria, and then you go back and you work on the criteria to be featured. And so I think that's the key thing around owning that category. The one thing that we don't know yet is kind of what queries is AI associating you with that you don't own, that maybe you should. And I think that's also something you can play around with yourself. I mean, everyone has access to Google with the AI overviews, or even AI mode, Perplexity as well. So you can really see how you're coming up, or take those categories that you want to appear in and see what's popping up in those searches, and go from there. So rule number 4 is all around third-party signals that build trust. But you can't own everything. So you own your content, you can control it, but also being present in third-party sources is really what builds that trust authority.
Yeah. I want to point towards 2 platforms here specifically. One is YouTube and one is Reddit. And I think for 2 different reasons. Reddit for the reason that you will probably have a strong head start against everybody else. Because I think it's a platform that has basically gained its popularity mostly from the tech scene and from like software and developer scenes or developer topics. But there are people also on Reddit asking for the best places to stay to do XYZ. And it might not be the case for all destinations. and for all types of travel. But if you understand the sources for things that are important to you, so let's imagine that one of the queries that you care about is what is the best hotel for a family vacation in South Tyrol. If this would be, for example, a query, and you would use, for example, the tool from Customer Alliance to understand the sources that AI platforms use to ground its answer. So basically the websites it looks at to then form its response. And if Reddit is in a certain significant percentage part of these sources, then the chances for you to get an outsized impact, so meaning if you engage on this platform in a way that makes sense, so it can't be super salesy, it can't be super advertising, but it can be honest and can be like authentic in a way that you say, hey, I work at this hotel here, and I think XYZ region is a great region to visit due to our great apples or due to our great hiking routes, etc., etc. So it's obviously a balance, but the chances that you are the only one in your region or in your category doing it are very high, at least today. This is why I would at least consider checking it, looking at if Reddit is a source, and if yes, how can you engage? This is the first. The second is YouTube. Why? Because YouTube is a very important citation source across the Google universe. It's not a surprise. So a lot of people then always tell me, yeah, who thought that? It's totally true, but still we have to act on it. So just the insight that it's not a surprise does not make it a marketing strategy. So what we did, for example, it's just an example from a B2B SaaS case study actually we published, because there we have very, very clear numbers. So if you already have a YouTube account and you have some videos on there, I would recommend you to do the same basically. Check the prompts or the searches that you care about. Check if YouTube is a source. If YouTube is a source, check the types of videos. And if you feel like that you have a video that is somehow similar, then think about, hey, how can I optimize the title and description to be a good match to this prompt? And obviously we could go in so much detail. I can recommend you checking out on our website the case study we did here for Heyflow. Then you can get a little bit of an idea how we optimize the titles and the descriptions. But long story short, you can get a lot of your videos into these citations and then into either AI overviews directly embedded or influencing the response so that your hotel becomes part of the response just by using existing material. And even if you do not have existing material, it might be sufficient to produce 2, 3, 4 videos with something like, so let's stay with the South Tyrol examples. And people care about good places to stay for skiing trips, like what's a good hotel for a skiing trip in Rio Pusteria, which is one of the valleys in South Tyrol. And then you might want to create a video where you explain the best routes in Rio Pusteria, the best lifts, some secret tips, the best, what's the English term? The best cottages, like basically places to eat during the ski day. This could be a video. You can produce it, like, I think with a very limited budget. So you can get a videographer that follows you around a day when you do a little bit of skiing, probably for 1,000 euros. Now, obviously 1,000 euros is not nothing, but the impact of this video being cited and then getting your hotel into the response, the impact can be a substantial increase in direct bookings. And I think given the rates of these hotels, it can be a very worthwhile investment. And this is something where I believe that a lot of people see this like barrier with YouTube because I have to create videos. It's very complicated. I don't think that it's very complicated because, you know, the thing is, it's not important that this video gets hundreds and hundreds or thousands of clicks. That's not important. It's just important that this video has a high relevancy to the queries that you care about, because you know that your customers or potential guests care about, and that your video becomes part of the citations and increases the chances for your hotel being mentioned in the responses. Now, obviously, I would not, and this is the caveat here, I would not bet a whole strategy on just one video. You should do it with a couple more videos. So 5 might be enough. You might need 10, depending on how well the video works. But so this is a point actually where it makes sense to either hire someone, freelancer, agency, doesn't matter, not want to advocate here for hiring Radyant in any way, but where it makes sense to have someone that can give you a good idea about what does this video need to contain as content, how does the title need to be, how does the description need to be, so your investment actually pays off in the best way possible, so that you increase the chances as much as possible for this video to become part of the citations. So we could obviously talk about directories, we could talk about local magazines, etc. The one key rule for you to take away is check the citation landscape, so which websites are used to form the AI response, and then you might often for Google see YouTube, focus on YouTube. You might, for example, for ChatGPT, you might often see Reddit, you might see other platforms. Just think about ways to engage with these platforms, to become part of these websites. You might also want to sponsor a local football tournament to become part, to get a couple of articles in a local newspaper that has an online presence that is used as citations multiple ways. We could go into a lot of detail, but I hope there were a couple of thought starters for you in here already.
I hope my marketing team was also listening to that little explanation around YouTube. But to give another concrete example of the YouTube phenomenon, in case people haven't told by my accent, I'm South African, and during COVID, we were stuck in our houses. And what one game lodge did is they decided to live stream game drives on YouTube. And they're still up today. In fact, it's a very popular YouTube channel. But because of that, they started ranking very, very well on Google. So it also goes to show that, some of that unique content that you might be able to deliver can impact your business down the line going forward. But also, again, I would be doing disservice without a shameless customer alliance plug around third-party content, and that is obviously reviews. And your reviews shape a lot about what AI has to say. If you check the sources, as Nick mentioned, often when you're searching for travel recommendations, the top cited sources are TripAdvisor, Booking.com. Very rarely is it a direct website from the hotel itself, which goes on to explain why your website is so important going forward. Because we don't want to lose that, I think it's between 15 and 30%, depending on your relationship with Booking on the commission. But the key thing here is with these review content is that AI is scanning the recency of the review. What is the sentiment of it? If there's specific experiences, again, going into that question answer format. So it's not just looking at the score, it's actually looking at the free text as well. So if your reviews are outdated, if you're not pushing people to leaving more reviews, it's going to ignore that, and it's going to lack that trust variable as well. And also, you want to counteract any potentially negative reviews that are present, that are older. Obviously, we know we can't remove reviews from Google unless they're blatantly false. So it's about actually counteracting them with positive experiences while not denying the negatives at the same time. And that takes us to the last rule, and that's to track and iterate. Everything we've mentioned so far is not a once-off phenomenon. And also, if you're not tracking, you don't know where to focus next. So what does this look like?
Yep. I think important to understand is a lot of people will tell you, nobody really knows what's working in AI search, etc. I think it's not true, because a lot of it is just reverse engineering and experimentation. So I would also not say it's true that if somebody claims, I know everything, I know exactly how it works, but it's the same with SEO. We have never gotten ranking factors from Google officially confirmed. It was always just reverse engineering. I think this works. There's a high tendency that this works. There are some signals that this doesn't work anymore, etc. So, and I think the most important part is you have to get your prompts right. And very, very important here, there is now, and I don't want to bore you with that, there's now plenty of research that it's not important that the prompts you track are basically a word by word representation of what people will actually put into the prompt window. You will mostly never get the exact same word by word order, so to say. So if somebody searches for what's the best family hotel, which family hotels can you recommend, what are good family hotels, this doesn't matter. What matters is the entities in the questions. So entities might be something like a category description, something like family hotel. So it's important to understand if your guests are looking for family hotels or good hotels with kids, good hotels with teens, good hotels for families with kids and grandparents. This might be a meaningful differentiation. Whereas, for example, it's also important to differentiate between the intents that people have. So if they want to go skiing, go hiking, etc. So it might be a completely different response that somebody gets if they say, I'm looking for the best family hotel in South Tyrol to go hiking or to go skiing. It makes total sense. I know sometimes people tell me, hey, if you explain it that way, it sounds almost too simple, but this is basically when I do my job, right? So you have to understand these entities, and you have to understand, do most of my guests and my most well-paying guests and returning guests, do they want to go hiking, skiing, family hotel? Do they have little children, teens? Do they come with their grandparents, etc.? This is important. If you get this right, then you just have to come up with an idea of how would someone maybe formulate this question and then track these prompts. And do not stress out too much about, they might ask this a little bit different and they might ask this a little bit different. I would not recommend to involve more than 2 or 3 people in this prompt selection process, because the more people you get on board, the more discussions you will have and the less fun the whole exercise will be. So basically come up with a set. I would always recommend to track something like 25 prompts at first, and then ideally over time. So it has to be meaningfully differentiated. It would not make sense to say 10 of these prompts are variations of family hotel, like family hotel with kids, with teens, etc. I would differentiate more between the different ideas that you've came up with, like from activity, from also region connected, like what are good hotels in the region of, etc. What are good hotels for a short trip, for a long summer vacation, etc. 25 prompts. Ideally, if you are a very like differentiated hotel and you have a lot of offerings and a lot of target groups. So especially if you have, for example, B2C and B2B target groups. So individual travelers, but then also business travelers, like people that do seminars, that do conferences, etc. at your hotel. You might want to expand these prompts maybe to also 30 or 50 prompts over time, but it's not necessarily at first. You just have to like ask yourself and keep asking yourself the same question over and over. If I am very visible for these prompts, do I think it will move the needle for my business? So if I show up very often for family hotels in South Tyrol with little kids, will it move my business forward? Because you will not ever reach like a direct connection. It will not be possible to say, okay, I have 5 additional visibility points. Now I made 10,000 euros in booking revenue. This won't ever be possible. There are multiple ways to connect to this in whatever shape or form, but you have to ensure that you ask yourself this question: is it meaningful? And meaningful means, do I show up here? Will it move my business forward? It's a little bit like connected to basic marketing principles. Before we had all this online marketing and tracking and cookies, etc., people were still doing advertising. We sometimes forget this. People were doing advertising. They were just asking themselves, hey, do I think it makes sense for my business to have this billboard here or to have this TV commercial? you know. And obviously it's good that we have tracking, etc. But the key purpose for tracking is to understand the citations and to understand the sources that AI pulls from, and then to ask yourself, can I create own content on my site? Can I be present on platforms that I can control? Like, you can partly control what happens on YouTube. So it's not your domain, but you can upload videos, you can remove videos, you can change titles, you can change descriptions. You can partly own what happens on TripAdvisor and Booking.com. Obviously, you can't write every word, but you can partly, like, for example, if you do not have such good reviews on certain platforms, you can try to actively work towards getting better reviews on these platforms. So it's not controllable fully, but it's partly controllable. And then obviously also third party. So something like media publications, directories, something that you do not own at all, that you can just ask someone to, like, hey, can I maybe get onto this website? This is what you want to understand from prompt tracking. And based on that, you can basically just do reverse engineering and move yourself forward, very, I think, experiment driven, and like week by week or in 2 week cycles or something. But you should not, and never, I would not recommend this. And also the most successful companies in this space do not do it, like software giants like HubSpot, etc. Don't try to come up with like a 6-month strategy and then basically say, yeah, okay, we did the prompt tracking exercise, now just work on the strategy. You have to really do it iteratively. So it has to be something where you stay agile. And I know it's sometimes hard for an organization. You have to unlearn certain patterns like planning cycles, etc. And hospitality is also a business with seasonalities, etc. I know that. It's definitely important, but still the landscape can change quickly. So you have to ensure that you are include a certain element of flexibility and agility into your marketing organization to really make this a success.
Exactly. It's also one reason why we have to keep this iterative process is every 2 weeks there's a new model. So we also have to keep experimenting in how that new model affects the search behavior going forward. So another reason to not set it and forget it. So what does this look like for your hotel right now? I mean, Niklas basically answered all of this already, so I won't do a double take. But it is essentially just asking, what do I think people are asking AI about my location, and then actually reflecting what is actually being said about me, and when it does recommend my hotel, what is the source? That's a key one there. We've said it a number of times. We don't want to have to pay Booking.com for an AI reference, right? And also, where am I ranking against my competitors? I think these are important questions to keep asking ourselves when we think about AI search. So just a quick recap, very briefly, because we are running out of time, is number one is own your data everywhere. Make sure that it's consistent, that there are no gaps. Write for the conversation that your guests are already having and build the content that answers those questions. Make sure that content is assigned to decision moments, not just surface level conversation pieces. And while owned content is your foundation, third-party content creates the trust as well as the reach beyond your own content. And then again, track and iterate. You can't manage what you can't see. If you don't know how you're appearing, then you can't change that narrative. So very quickly, how are we working at Customer Alliance to help you do this? I am also going to put a link in the chat if you want some more information. I hope it posted. If not, there it is. It posted. It worked. Great. So how are we working at Customer Alliance to help you with your AI search visibility? We built a tool, started off as an internal experiment, and it kind of morphed from there. And this is what it looks like. This is a demo account. So this data is fake for the most part. And what you can see here is an overview of how a hotel is appearing in AI search. We've created an overall visibility score which is a rolling 30-day average, because you can ask an AI search the same question twice and get two different answers. So we're incorporating this into an average response. You can see the trend line over time, and you can even see it per platform breakdown of how you're scoring per platform. So you can even create targeted strategies to, for example, increase the Google AI overview presence. This is a composite score based on a few other aspects around visibility, which is, are you appearing, yes or no? Position, when you are appearing, what rank are you in the list or in the paragraph? How much of the text is directed towards your specific location? Is it a positive, negative, or neutral sentiment? And are you appearing across all of the platforms or only some? So this is just the overview. But I think what a lot of these platforms are not offering hotels themselves is a way of, one, tracking competitors. So we are also tracking the mentions of other hotels to these prompt responses. And you can see here how you would rank against these hypothetical competitors, and what is the share of voice that you control within those responses. And you can then see what platforms they are coming up at, their average position within the lists that they're appearing. And I think we've spoken a lot about content and how owning your content is key going forward. So we also built this feature where you can see how you are perceived by the AI models, just generally what is coming up, what is missing, what are some inaccuracies that are being mentioned, and how does this compare to your actual website? So not just third-party content, but we're actually looking at your website itself. What is AI claiming that is completely false? What are things on your website that are not coming up at all? So you have these actual targeted areas to improve. And we even built that into our recommendation engine, where you can see open recommendations. You can get a lot more detail in terms of step-by-steps on how to implement these recommendations and how we believe they will affect your overall AI visibility score. So that is something that we are launching today publicly for AI search visibility, specifically for hotels. And if you're interested, the link is in the chat. You can start a 7-day free trial and give it a chance to see. Like, the whole point that we're trying to help out with here is rule number 5. You can't improve what you don't measure. Let me go back to the presentation now. So you can also scan the QR code, but given time, I feel like it's good to just go to our Q&A questions very quickly. So, Nick, I'm just going to put them on the screen, and you should be able to see them and give a quick answer to them.
Yep.
So this is from Isabella. What is AI referencing more on the website? Is it the FAQs? Is it page titles? Is it actual content itself in paragraphs? Where should a hotel focus most?
It's a little bit hard to answer that way. So you have to think about your page as something that should work in chunks, but should also work as a whole. So what I mean by that is that you might have created a page that is targeted towards, let's say, the best activities in a certain city, in the city of your hotel. And you know these activities are activities your guests care about. And then you want your title, you want your headline, etc. to be optimized so that it's easy to understand what this page is about. And you also want the paragraphs or like the parts of this content to be self-contained so that they basically answer themselves, so to say. And you might also want to have an FAQ, but an FAQ is mostly not so important if you have long-form content. It's more important if it's like short-form content. So short-form, not in the sense of social media, but like a brief description page of your spa offerings, for example. Then an FAQ page, an FAQ added to this page at the bottom might be helpful. Yeah, and you have to keep in mind that LLMs might not parse the whole page. So something that we recently learned from research from a partner of ours is that the more items you have in your main navigation, the less basically of your main page content the LLM can read. So if you have a super huge main navigation with like dozens and dozens of sub items, I would revisit this information architecture and try to make the navigation more lean, and maybe consider testing something like a search-based navigation for users where they are still able to search for what they want, so they can go 2-3 levels deep, but still have a more leaner navigation, so the LLM can basically read more of the page's main content.
Awesome. I think I'm going to choose 2 more questions, and we will attempt to answer the others in a follow-up. But here is a good one that came via LinkedIn around booking channels specifically. So if guests begin booking directly through AI platforms in the future, through embedded apps or other ways, what impact could this have on kind of what we're speaking about in terms of discoverability via AI and other distribution strategies?
Yeah, so I would love to say that it's probably a super democratizing element where a hotel can basically claim back their presence and claim back the channel, so to say, or the guest access from the big platforms. But I think the problem here is that the big AI platforms like ChatGPT and also others, the more they see travel research becoming a use case, the more they will look into ways to monetize it themselves or to partner with platforms that have big inventories. So for example, I also do a podcast, and I had Felix Welkenbach on the podcast, who is Director Product Search and Discovery from Home2Go, which is a platform like Booking.com, for example. And he told me, and it's already a couple of months back, that they were already working on an MCP server that would then connect to ChatGPT. So that basically means that when you use ChatGPT, you can access the whole Home2Go inventory. And I think this is something that the platforms will look into. How can I access a huge inventory in the easiest way possible? Because you have to think about these platforms. They want to reduce costs, and if they have to do all sorts of big web searches, it's relatively cost intensive. It's less cost intensive if they have a go-to provider like a Booking.com, maybe also multiple providers, where they can basically do a semantic search, so they can ping this provider. They have different parameters like region, travel type, etc. And they get back a list of curated results instead of having to create these results themselves from web results. So not gonna say that this might not have a net positive effect for hotels, but I think still, if you look at the platform dynamics, I think it's most likely that the AI platforms will look for providers with big curated inventories. So you should keep driving a dual strategy, having a strong owned presence, and on the other side, also having a strong platform presence to benefit in it, however this will play out.
Awesome. And I think just the last question very quickly, if someone in this webinar wants to start playing around with AI models and searches, will they get unbiased answers, or does the LLM know who they are when they're conducting the search?
Yeah, per default, the LLMs will most likely have some personal context from you. It depends a little bit on what you use and in which type of usage. Like, is it a free account incognito tab, or are you logged in, and is it a paid account, something like that? But generally speaking, most platforms have some sort of memory and some sort of personal context. And we did a study that is not public yet, but basically spoilering. The more context an LLM has when it searches, the more diverse the response is. So me, for example, I will probably get a different list of hotels if I search for the best hotels in South Tyrol than someone that is a professional or like a very passionate hiker that has searched for all sorts of hiking shoes and equipment and tents and all that kind of stuff, because I'm more on the like comfy hotel side, and they will be more like on the rough, like let's go nature side. So if you want to get an unbiased result, however this is possible, you should use incognito tab and then ChatGPT logged out, or Google like logged out and incognito tab. But I think it will probably not give you the responses that you're actually looking for. What I would rather recommend is think about the personas that are your best guests. So who's the best guest? Is it like a mother of a family with 2 kids, etc.? And then try to give this personal context into the prompts that you're tracking. Like we do it, for example, really in saying I am blah blah blah, and then I am looking for this and that. This is how we synthesize, so to say, personas in our prompt tracking, and it works really well because we get much more targeted results that also help our clients understand how they show up for the people they care most about.
Awesome. We are already way over time. So just want to say thank you, Niklas, for joining us, and thanks to everyone else for participating in the webinar. If we didn't get to your question, we will attempt to follow it up with the FAQ in the email following the event, or in a content piece down the line. But if you ever need to reach out to anyone here, you've got Radyant.io for Niklas and his team, and then customeralliance.com for the Customer Alliance team if you ever want to really dive into your reviews and how we can help with getting that content out there. But yeah, thanks everyone for joining, and I hope everyone has a great rest of the Tuesday.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.